Hello, distinguished viewers. Nice of you to stop by. I am your host, Will from Squiz, an experienced digital experience management platform. We're here today to chat with American College of Physicians about digital transformation in one extraordinary year for the medical and association sector. American College of Physicians is a diverse community of internal medicine specialists and subspecialists united by a commitment to excellence. They are the largest medical specialty organization and the second largest physician group in the United States. Over 163,000 members use the ACP website to find resources to improve their expertise in specific diagnosis and treatment. It's a community to share new studies and information so that specialists can apply the preeminent knowledge to a patient's situational educational purposes. I'm very excited to welcome Steve Spatt, Senior VP of Technology, and Neil Cole, Senior Architect at American College of Physicians. Gentlemen, thank you for joining.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Well then, let's dive in. So I guess none of us had a crystal ball of the challenges for COVID-19 would present to membership associations, particularly yours as you support physicians. But let's wind it back. Tell me about the state of things pre-COVID and the initiatives that you already had in the works.
Sure, I'll start, Neil. Neil, as usual, he'll be the detail guy. I mean, you know, like everyone else, we were marching towards more and more cloud architectures, and you know, both on the infrastructure as a service side and the SaaS side, just ramping up at a pretty rapid rate to adopt new technologies and focus really on, as luck would have it, collaboration tools. It was clear that it wasn't just our technology division where our staff was desiring and needing more sophisticated ways of collaborating digitally, but it was all across the organization. And so it's interesting because we were kind of using ourselves as guinea pigs in our division, and we were using all different types of tools. Almost got to the point where we have too many tools, and then we had to kind of say, all right, which tools do we want to keep, and which ones were sort of experiments that we can wind down. And we found that even the non-technologists across our organization were really, really eager to get beyond, you know, email and voice and even text. So that was a big part on the sort of staff and kind of inward-looking side. And on the membership and sort of our customer side, we certainly have always been involved in digital learning, and that's a huge part, the biggest part of what we do on the medical education side. But we still had a foot pretty firmly in-person meetings and live education as well. So that part probably took us a little by surprise when suddenly that went from, even though it wasn't the biggest part of our portfolio, it was a lot more than zero, and it suddenly became zero. So Neil, I don't know, did you have more to add on the
I guess
IAS side?
We were very fortunate in that, as Steve said, we have been moving more towards cloud services, and we had managed to get a couple key things in place right before everything went crazy. We had substantially upgraded our connectivity, and our phone system went VoIP, kind of in a couple months preceding the whole COVID shutdown, and I think that was kind of sheer dumb luck that it happened then.
Brilliant planning, Neil. That was brilliant planning.
Exactly. Yes, we totally forecasted this pandemic, and it's for the organization. It was a natural progression of moving more and more things into virtual services. You know, as opposed to having a physical PBX for the phone system, we now have a virtual phone system. And this started, I would say, probably 10 years ago. We started testing the waters with AWS to fill in some of the gaps in our internal infrastructure. So for things like high-speed delivery of files, we started using AWS because it was something that we really couldn't do well with our infrastructure. And that kind of, as we found pain points internally, we were comfortable trying out external services. So this is where we are now with this substantial amount of our infrastructure in the cloud. It's kind of a natural progression with us testing the waters over a long term and becoming more and more comfortable with it. And Funnelback is a piece of that. You know, we went from an in-house Google appliance to basically buying the software as a service from Funnelback.
Okay, that's fantastic.
And we have these very colorful Google appliances stacked in the corner of our shrinking server room
yes.
right now.
Good as coasters to put your coffee mugs on, I'm sure.
Yeah, Neil wanted to make a coffee table out of one. Did you ever do that?
No. They are beautiful pieces of industrial design.
They are.
Even if they are absolutely useless right now.
So then moving into COVID, early March last year, so what happened and how did you learn about what your members cared about?
Well, I was actually looking back at so we have a dedicated COVID information center where we've been posting the latest information. That actually went up in February as a response to an unusual virus that was found in China. But yeah, Steve, if you want to kind of talk about what happened.
Well, it's interesting, right? It was called, and people got confused. It was called a novel coronavirus. We even were using the term coronavirus until, and this part of being in a physician organization, our physician experts sort of were saying, well, no, coronavirus is common cold is a coronavirus. That's not the enemy. It's the fact that it's a novel coronavirus that makes it so dangerous. And COVID-19 is the disease caused by that viral infection. And so we got kind of into the nuance pretty quickly. But I think what really struck, I think, what was maybe a big challenge for us, where our members were coming to us for information, of course, like everyone else, quickly realized the information was changing, by the minute or hour, not by the day or week, as it had been. And really that kind of, our content, our carefully constructed information architecture on our website kind of unraveled quickly because we hadn't designed for a, life-altering pandemic that changes all the rules section. We didn't have a section of the website for that. So now what do we do, right? And again, with the physicians, it wasn't just the treatment or the diagnosis, the state of those arts, but for our physicians in private practice, it was telehealth. If you're not doing telehealth now, you're going to go out of business like next month, not a year from now. And so all these urgencies started sort of appearing, and we had to figure out where all these things would go and how to put them together. And so we really kind of took, two approaches. One was the sort of curating a physician's guide, COVID-19 physician's guide, where we try to pull all these things together. But the other is to rely on a good search engine to do that for us, right? So that sort of meta search concept Neil had constructed, which I want him to describe in a second. But what we call meta search, I don't know if that's an industry term or not, but essentially Neil's engineered things so that we're searching, I don't know, what is it, 15 different sites, Neil, something like that now. And one of the biggies is our journal, Annals of Internal Medicine, is our medical journal. I think we used to get something like 3,000 article submissions per year, and we ended up at almost 9,000, so almost triple. And again, the pace, it was not 6 months or 3 months from submission to publication. It was a month or weeks. And so all that stuff, all this content is feverishly and furiously, feverishly, I shouldn't have said that, maybe furiously sort of hitting our site. And so where does it go? And so Neil, do you want to describe that?
Sure, yeah. So I think, for our physicians, there are two pieces. One is the clinical piece. So, what is the latest information on this disease? The other thing is, because everything's shut down and because our one of our main constituencies is primary practice doctors. Their businesses were basically closed except for people with serious medical problems. So there were two pieces. There was the medical piece, and there was also a business piece for a lot of our members. Is, you know, how can we continue our practices if we can't see patients normally? So, you know, I think one of the things that the organization did was to lobby heavily for reimbursement for telemedicine calls and also for phone calls. So I think for certain circumstances, a telemedicine call, a video conference like we're having now, was reimbursable, but not a regular telephone call. So, you know, over the course of this, the ACP was able, you know, to kind of nudge the government in the right direction to get telemedicine and regular phone calls reimbursable, like office visits, which, but to get members to that information as well as the clinical information, we used result tuning within Funnelback. So for COVID, there's the various names for COVID, coronavirus, SARS-CoV-19, I believe is the WHO designation for it. And then also for multiple keyword combinations. So if you're looking for COVID telemedicine, we will promote different results than if you're just searching for COVID, in which case we'll promote the clinical results. But it's trying to both anticipating what people are going to be searching for and trying to put those things in front of them. And then also looking at how people are using it and making sure that our assumptions are correct in how people are searching for these things. And then also to try and anticipate the alternate ways that they may be searching and add synonyms to make sure that all those alternatives work. So one of the problems with medical searches is medical literature uses one language. So a heart attack is myocardial infarction, whereas a practicing physician will use the shortest possible abbreviation for that, MI. So, you know, we have our synonym set up. So if you search for MI, you will find articles with myocardial infarction. If you're using the layman's term heart attack, you will also find these articles. So it's kind of a constant process of anticipating user behavior and then double checking it, looking at the search analytics and seeing what people are actually searching for.
Yeah, I would just say that tuning is so critical. And again, this is one of those things that maybe you don't normally plan for. All the more critical in the fact that the state of the art was changing by the hour or day, right? So you couldn't let the natural organic 300, 400, 5,000 hit bubble to the top because there was no time. So we had to say, no, if you're looking for, you know, treatment of choice, it's not this anymore. It was last week. Now it's this. We don't really want you looking at this anymore. So there are a lot of these like very urgent and short time frame tunings that we had to stay on top of. Tunings on the search and on the curation side.
What a great testament to. I underestimated how multifaceted the association was in terms of how you serve your members, and it kind of goes away from, you know, professional development, learning, but then also practical guidance to how to stay in business. But then how does that link up with information retrieval and the nuances? But having the ability to control that experience sounds like is a real help for you during this, like you said, this period of extreme flux.
Absolutely. I think the other. Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah, the other point Neil made was what we call advocacy. You know, essentially, we also have to. COVID-19 changed the rules in a lot of cases. So in the U.S., at least, reimbursement, as Neil was saying, for telemedicine was really convoluted and confusing and nuanced. You sometimes can get reimbursed for a certain type of telehealth, other times you can't. And then a lot of the rules changed rapidly and in the short term. So suddenly, okay, because of COVID, now we'll reimburse for this or that. And so again, all of the material, a lot of the educational material we had about telehealth and reimbursement was just no longer correct, let alone, you know, not current, right? It was actually false now. And so we suddenly had this new resource. There's no way it could gain enough search equity in like 1 or 2 days relative to this other stuff, but it was the thing we needed them to see, because, which is Neil's point about, COVID and telehealth is different than sort of just regular telehealth. So they have to work in tandem.
Brilliant. So thinking more broadly, what kind of trends did you see emerge last year, and how did you get the board to buy into those? As you lead the digital teams, was there anything that was important to all of you thinking back?
You want to start, Neil? You want me to start? I'll start if you want.
Yeah, it's. Why don't you start? Because it's a big topic to begin with, so I'm not sure we're the right place to dive in. So
yeah. I mean, it's interesting because in my position, I look at almost everything internally and externally, because we have our IT group and we're focused on, internal operations, and then of course our digital products side, what we kind of call digital products and services, or what we're offering to our members and what we're building for them. So that's sort of the outward facing. In both areas, the commonality was, I mean, this isn't unique to ACP or even the membership space, but or society space, but the pace of change was completely recalibrated, right? What used to be fairly quick was suddenly way too slow. But what the good and that was scary, right? And it was all happening while suddenly there was no office anymore. Everyone was in their basements, and and their kids were studying or taking school next to them, sometimes in the same room. All of that, and everything has to be happening in days instead of weeks or months. What came from it, and I'm an optimist, is and I tend to look on the bright side of things, was this, well, I would say sort of an attitude of do the best you can. And again, this isn't unique to us, I think, but it was almost palpable, this sort of, almost every request, instead of being a demand, I need this by next Friday, started with, I know you're incredibly busy. I'm so sorry to have to ask you this, but is there any way we can do X, Y, Z? And so I think there was and I've always been a sort of good enough, I know it sounds kind of lame, but I think there's not enough emphasis on doing the best you can with what you have, and quicker, done and out there is better than never done and never out there, right? And so I think people do tend to get mired in checking every little box and adding every little feature they can think of. So I think the whole sort of culture changed to just do the best you can. Thanks so much. There was appreciation. There was just a more positive, I think, view of that approach to everyone just sort of pitching in, doing their part. So that was a big part of what I would like to see stick in 2021 as it did in 2020, as we emerge from this, that same mentality.
Would you say that it's almost like that, sort of starting with empathy? Do you feel that was the same from the feeling from your members towards the association as well, not just sort of internally? Sort of making sure you're doing your best and trying to get everything out to them. Yeah.
Yes, I do, and I think there was fear of that in the beginning. In fact, it just so happened that March is a big time for our dues in our annual dues cycle. So that's normally when we go out and say, hey, you're going to lose your benefits unless you finally pay your dues. Kind of hard to deliver that message to physicians who are going out of business because of COVID, right? And so we actually did extend benefits all the way to September. We spent a lot of time on that communication, making sure that they knew we weren't just there to collect dues, but we were there to support them, and that we were going to help them work through it. That we were cognizant of the financial challenges they were having, and suddenly, paying their dues was much lower on their list of payments that they needed to make. And so we were very, very sensitive to that in our messaging and in our policy and our approach. We were rewarded for it, I would say. we were, I would say, very pleasantly surprised at how, because some people were worried, right? If we extend it to September, then what about this December? What about next March? Should we give them a whole year of free dues? Well, that would be a huge, dues is a big part of our revenue. So we worried, but I think you put it perfectly, Will. I mean, there was goodwill from members as well. They wanted to pay the dues because they saw how much we were doing to help them through it. They saw us as on their team through that whole process, and that made all the difference.
Yeah, I think to add to what Steve said, I think there's two pieces. There's the cultural changes that had to happen within the organization. So there's, I mean, I'm an IT worker. I'm comfortable working anywhere I have a laptop and an internet connection, and I've been that way for a decade. But there are a lot of people who've never worked outside the office. Our entire customer service, our member support team, they come into the office. They don the headset. They talk to our members and make sure that they can serve our members. They had to switch overnight to working from home. So it's kind of a tribute to how, first of all, the preparation, that our test day was March 13th. That went so well that it was kind of like, okay, we're now working from home. Don't come back. So there was a huge cultural change for people never having to work from home to having to work from home. As a manager, how do you manage people who you're used to seeing, in the office, and now you're managing them remotely? How does that work? There are the day-to-day operations of the organization. So we publish a medical journal every other week. That continued. In addition to that, we were transitioning that medical journal from its current hosting vendor to a new hosting vendor. Somehow we did that without a hitch. We went virtual, and yet that project just churned on. So again, it's a tribute to how flexible our staff was in able to just kind of take what comes, okay, this is the situation we're working in. Here are the steps we have to accomplish to get to this deadline to launch the journal on time. And there were things, it was kind of like, we need to get things, so in speaking to Steve's, kind of get something up rather than get a perfect product up. It's, the COVID-19 clinical information. We went up with what we had. We updated it sometimes multiple times a day, sometimes every couple of days. But as the information became available, we were constantly updating that. We have an annual meeting, an annual scientific meeting, which happens in April, and everything went dark in March. So it was a very last-minute decision to cancel that meeting and to come up with a way to disseminate some of the scientific information that would have happened in that meeting virtually. So we cobbled together a package of basically videos that you could purchase access to, watch the videos, and then you could get credit, continuing education credit for watching those videos. So it's a lot of being flexible in terms of trying to accomplish the most important goals that were there before everything shut down, and then also adjusting for the things that couldn't happen because of the shutdown.
Maybe we can dive into that virtual event a little bit. Was there anything that came out of it, and did it surprise you that you were thinking, wow, well, maybe we can take this and move this on and do this in the future? Or anything that you said, no, we definitely will not do that next time?
Well, I think there was an evolution, which maybe Steve can speak to. So that event was kind of as basic as possible. It was, I believe it was just professors, the physicians recording their presentation. You could watch it, and then you answer a quiz. Right. Yeah. And by the time we had come around to a governance meeting, we were able to have a different format where it was more interactive, where it was almost like a very large scale Zoom meeting, but with a lot of ancillary stuff around it to do the business of the organization. So I don't know, Steve, can you talk a little bit about kind of the evolution from the simple to the more complex online?
Yeah, that was the trick. And of course, the other challenge was, every 10 minutes you were getting spammed by virtual event platform vendors, and many were not. many right, would build a web page for you that links to a Zoom, and they were calling that a virtual event platform. And so you had to sift through all that. And we ended up kind of, as Neil said, kind of home growing our own virtual event platform for our governance meeting, which is a multiple day meeting with breakouts and all, there's a relative amount of complexity there. But for the annual meeting, as Neil said, we had like 1 month to virtualize our live meeting last year. And so that was very straightforward. We essentially used online learning technology that we sort of already built and repurposed it and to make that available to our attendees. Of course, they could opt to, get a refund, but if they wanted, they could still get that content. And this year, of course, we've had much longer to prepare, so this will be a full-blown online virtual synchronous event, 3 days. And what we didn't know, of course, as no one knew, is are people going to still come? Well, everyone comes to our meeting, they can see each other and shake hands and wander the halls and have coffee. They're not going to want to come just to a virtual event. And many people thought that. So far, it looks like those people were incorrect, and there's a huge demand for the content, and that just like working from home, physicians are learning that learning from home has its advantages. Not just, again, better than nothing, but I think there's advantages that people are realizing. I don't have to commute anymore. I can have lunch with my wife. For them, I don't have to close my practice for a whole week and fly to another city and stay in an expensive hotel. I can just jump on my computer, and if I miss a session, I have 30 days to watch what I missed. All these things that all of us are familiar with. I'm not saying I'll never go to another conference, and there's certainly pluses to being in a live place with another live person or others, and we all can't wait for that to happen. But I think it's a mistake to say a virtual event is not as good as a live event, but it's the best we can do. It's just different, right? And has different value. And so I think we're seeing that certainly moving forward. Hybrid is the name of the game, right? Hybrid is the word for everything. We're going to have a hybrid workforce. We're going to have hybrid meetings. All of our offerings are going to be hybrid. In reality, they kind of always were. If you think about it, we've had remote workers, they just didn't work 100% of the time from home. We've had digital learning. We've just never, we've never sold it in bundle with live synchronous learning or haven't packaged it that way. So I think we've always been hybrid. I think what we mean by 2021 version of hybrid is more, if there's a balance between, digital and sort of in person, the digital component is probably going to be higher than it used to be in a lot of ways. Hybrid workforce, same thing, more remote than in person, but we're still going to have an office, and we're still going to need to go there now and then.
Sounds like that's the main thing that's going to be sticking around from last year. It's actually a continued investment in that hybrid approach. And is there anything else that from RC you think that's changed the industry or what you guys do?
The only other point I would make, and this kind of falls in the silver linings maybe that we were talking about earlier, but again, both on the internal view, our staff, and external, our membership, and I think Neil touched on this with our staff. I was always confident in the technology. I have to say that, right? Because it's kind of my job. But I was blown away, and still am, in awe of how quickly our staff and our members adjusted to this new world. It was literally overnight. March 13th, let's try this. March 14th, I'll see you in a year. I mean, that's if you had told me that before that happened, I would say, oh, no way, we'll fall apart.
Well, the promise was 2 weeks, and it just kind of kept going. Oh, 2 more weeks, 2 more.
That's true. It wasn't.
It was just yeah.
We'll see you in 2 weeks. 4, 6, 3 months. Let's make it a year. We'll see it. Yeah. So, and the same thing with the members, not just telehealth, right? But learning a virtual. Can they go to a virtual meeting and learn? Yeah, they can. Can they see patients through Zoom or their video patient telehealth platform. Yeah, they can, and they're learning it. And so much of change resistance is fear. And so and they still had fear, but you sort of take away the ability to say no thanks, right? You kind of have to, and then you do it. And I'm the same way. I go, oh, that wasn't so bad. And so that's been a big silver lining, I think, on both sides, internally and externally.
Brilliant. And then final question. I mean, is there anything that you've learned through this transformation this year that you would recommend to other membership organizations who want to keep serving their members? Cool question.
You want to go first, Neil?
It's more kind of, I think, distilling the notion that a membership organization serves to help its membership, and it's being able to recognize what the membership's needs are, and how, as an organization, you can best serve them. And for us, a lot of our governance, the people who lead the organization, are also members. They're physicians, so we have that within the organization as part of the structure of the organization. And it's being responsive, knowing what your members need, and finding ways to meet the needs of your membership. It's critical to the survival of a membership business, a membership association, or any business, really.
Yeah. To that, I would just add, I think there's a temptation, all membership, all businesses really, but certainly membership size, they're always saying, well, we need to plan 5 years out, right? We need to get ahead of our membership, right? Well, we need to skate where the puck's going to be. That's a North American expression that we all love. But the reality is, no one really knows. I mean, no one, in January of 2020, I have to go back and do my, that's how long ago it was, would say, well, obviously there's going to be this, pandemic, and all hell's going to break loose. So we have to get our members ready for that. We couldn't have been. And as we sort of jokingly said before, we were a little bit lucky in that we were more ready than we thought, maybe. But what you can do is be prepared to be nimble, be prepared to be able to change quickly. That's really what matters, I think. So you have to make sure your organization is technically and personally and culturally ready to, I hate to use the word pivot. Doesn't everybody use the word pivot in every conversation now? But I won't say pivot. To be ready to shift fairly quickly. And so obviously that's the beauty of the cloud on a technology level, right? We don't need one server anymore. We need 5. Click a radio button, save. Now we have 5 servers. That's not how it was before cloud architecture, cloud services. And not just because I'm talking to you, Will, but on the online content side of things, I think, and like I said, I'm not just saying this because I love Funnelback, but I was always a browser. I go to a website and my instinct is to click on the menus and figure this out, and I will find the content. No, I'm not typing in that search bar. That's giving up. But this, as we said, has changed my thinking on that. It really can't. This is part of being nimble. No information architecture is sound forever. Whereas a well-designed, certainly a meta search, a well-designed search that has has tuning capabilities and that you can manipulate in real time to keep up with those needs, I think is critical. So, and I just think in general, because of the complexity of information and how dramatically and how quickly it changes, I think the shift from from browsers to searchers, or from browse to search, is going to keep shifting more towards search. But that's just a prediction.
And then I think that the other thing is the wonderful thing about cloud computing is that it makes it easy to try stuff at low expense. So in the old days, if we were planning a new product, you had to do hardware specing and, you know, like kind of how much resources is this going to consume. Now you can spin some stuff up in the cloud, attach, you know, only the components you need, whether it be a database, a storage, computing servers, and try stuff and see, you know, if you can come up with a new product or service to serve your membership, you know, give it a try. And don't invest too much in it. You know, the minimum product that you can get out there to be useful, add features if they're needed, or if the product starts to take off, and you know, it makes it less painful to pull the plug if something doesn't work. But you know, you can give things a try.
Yeah, totally agree. Experiment. Same, like we said before too, same thing internally. You know, we were using, I don't know if I'm allowed to use the other brand names here, but, you know, we were using Slack like everyone. We were on WebEx, we moved to Zoom, we had Slack, we had Microsoft Teams, 8x8 chat, and universal communication as a service. And so, and many people were saying, enough's enough. Just tell us, just pick one and tell us to use it. And I kind of resisted. I'm like, well, I don't know which one to pick yet because I haven't tried them all. So, and because, you know, this one little group over here is loving how this thing works for them. And this group over here really needs this tool because of the way they work. And why should we just pick one and make them all adapt to it? So, as I said before, though, clearly we can't just forever let everybody use whatever tool they want. So but that period of experimentation, like Neil's talking about, is critical. I think there has to be room for that. And again, with cloud computing, that's not a huge investment. Try it and then stop trying it if it doesn't work. That's huge, Neil. I agree.
That's great advice. Steve, Neil, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. That was a really great conversation.
Glad to be here, and good luck to everyone else. Hopefully we're out of this and into a next normal soon. Enough with this normal. Let's go to a new one.
And thank you, everyone. This presentation was brought to you by Squiz. Squiz is creates extraordinary experiences for a digital world through our site search platform, Funnelback, which Neil and Steve have been talking through today, as well as our content management system, Integrations Hub, and more. We're trusted by hundreds of top institutions across the globe, and Squiz could be your partner to move forward faster. Thank you.